SEC championship game, Georgia, Texas. This feels like the first championship game that we've touched on that winner and loser are getting in. It's just going to be the difference of seeding. It's going to be the difference of first round bye or not. Fitz, who do you like in this one?
I like Texas. And I know obviously we've seen it go differently, but here's the thing. Lately, I know Carson Beck has cooled it on the interceptions a little bit. So like, huzzah, great. But I still trust this Texas defense. I don't know where that came from. I trust a Texas defense full of guys that have been there before. We've talked a little bit over the show the last couple of weeks. This Texas defense is particularly disciplined, right? And they're able to force you to make mistakes. So in this game, what I'm looking at is I got one quarterback on one side that I think, frankly, is a little bit mistake prone in some of these big games. And then he's taking on a defense that can take advantage of that. And I've got a play caller in Sark that I just think at times this year has gotten really hot in games. He's really good at getting rhythm out of Quinn. He's good at finding rhythm in the running game. I think rhythm is the difference in this. Texas is better today than Georgia is. And as much as it pains me to say this because we just presume Georgia finds a way to win big games, I don't think they win this one. So it's a close game to me, but I'll take Texas 27-24.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that stick out to me about this game that I think to set the scene is like, one, Carson Beck is playing really well right now. I know there's a narrative nationally that he's not, understandably so. He had 11 picks in, 8 games? But he has 11 touchdowns and 1 pick in his last 4 games since the Florida game. So Carson Beck's playing really well. But this Texas defense is on an entirely new level. And Fitz, you just mentioned it. They've allowed 2 yards a carry in their last 3 games. I mean, you'll win almost every game you play if you ever allow 2 yards a carry. They already picked off Beck 3 times in that first matchup. And this defense has a plan, knows how to attack Georgia, and I think we'll be right back in that area of bringing pressure, being able to get to Beck with only rushing 4, and then playing great coverage in the secondary. Texas allowed no points to A&M on defense. A&M's only score that game was a pick 6 when they played last week, and then A&M though was fresh off a 40-point performance at Auburn. And then Texas holds them to no points. So this Texas defense is on an entirely new level. I don't think Carson Beck will be able to keep up. Add on top of that, Texas has finally found a running back. And it might be the difference maker. No wonder their defense is playing so well right now. They're on the field less. That's normally how it works because Texas is running the football. Wisner went for 158 against Kentucky, 186 against A&M. So I think that's the factor in this game. Texas running the football, running it well against the Georgia defense that's been up and down this season. I know they're a great defense, but they have found that run game, and the Texas O-line is legit, and their defense is probably the best in the country. So I like Texas in this one. I got Texas 27-17.
One other thing, too, guys. The way you beat Texas is by playing flawless football. How often this year have we seen Georgia, whether it's drops, penalties, whatever it is, how often have we seen Georgia play flawless football? That's the only thing.
Well, one of the times we saw them play flawless football, it was in Austin against Texas. But, Adam, you didn't even mention one of Texas's best running threats, not Trey Wisner, Arch Manning. That's, I think, maybe a potential wild card here, is I think the threat of potentially seeing Arch Manning is high enough that Georgia's defense is going to have to prepare for Arch Manning. And Georgia has not been good against mobile quarterbacks all season long. They gave up 117 yards and 2 touchdowns to Jalen Milroe. They gave up 50 yards to Jackson Dart on a day where Ole Miss couldn't really run the ball, and it's not like Jackson Dart is like the run threat that Jalen Milroe is, but whenever Jackson Dart took off, he was able to make plays. And then obviously most recently this past week, Haynes King ran for 110 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Arch Manning is coming off a day where 4th and 2, they absolutely have to have it. Arch Manning takes off for a 10-yard touchdown run. And Arch Manning, we've seen him. He had that 67-yard touchdown run against UTSA. He had the 15-yarder against Texas A&M. He had a handful of double-digit runs against Mississippi State. I understand that UTSA and Mississippi State are not Georgia, but there is some there with what Arch Manning is able to do with his legs. I totally agree that if Texas wins a national championship, it will be because of their defense. It will be because their defense is so good. And Texas has been so consistent. But when Georgia plays up to their ceiling, they can beat anybody in the country. Like when Georgia plays up to their ceiling, they are also a national championship contender. The only worry there is they don't always play up to their ceiling, but Kirby Smart coach teams play up to their ceiling when they absolutely, positively have to. So I'm actually going to take Georgia. I'm going to take Georgia to win this one. I think it's hard to beat the same team twice in the same season. But it's just something about, and I understand that Georgia lost the SEC championship game last year. I totally understand that. But I just trust Kirby Smart way too much.
That's a bold prediction. Bold prediction.
Is it bold? Is that bold? I mean, Texas is 2.5-point favorite.
Yeah, I don't think it's bold, but I like your reasoning. I mean, I'm not rethinking my prediction, but I think you made a pretty strong case for it.
I think considering the fact that
we're gonna stick around, I'm gonna change your mind.
Considering that people have been sitting here trying to figure out if Georgia even makes the college football playoff if they lose all week, like I'd say it's bold. It's boldish. Bold.
They're gonna make the college football playoff if they lose to Texas.
I think so, yeah.
Barring, knock on wood, a horrible injury, a horrific injury, knock on all of the wood, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but Georgia's going to find their way into the college football playoff.
For any of these situations we've talked about today, the one variable is like if you're in your conference championship game and you get beat 41-0. I don't think that's going to happen in this situation, but that's the only variable I think that could change all of that. Like when you take an extra loss and you just got absolutely run out like that, but I don't think that's going to happen here.